Good evening, I'm David, and I'm going to show you how I made an alcohol stove out of an aluminum bottle. This is an aluminum bottle, and the way I start the project is I measure from the bottom upward 3 7/8 inches, and I mark that using a felt tip marker. I then measure from the top down 3 3/8 inches, and in this case I used a spot of tape wrapped around to mark that measurement. The next thing I use is an ordinary hacksaw, and I take the hacksaw and I draw back on the aluminum bottle where it is marked. And notice that I'm not exerting an overabundance of pressure because I don't want to bend the aluminum. So I will actually go all the way around the aluminum 3 to 4 times, both here and at the lower mark. After scoring the line all the way through, I continue drawing back until I can feel that the blade is nearly through the aluminum. When it gets to that point, it's about tissue paper thin, and it takes very little energy to actually pierce the aluminum. That's what you want because you don't want to bend the aluminum. Not a horrible thing if you bend it, it's just easier for the next couple of steps if it isn't bent. And there she goes. So, what you end up with is 2 pieces of an aluminum can, and the centerpiece right here is actually just waste product. The next step is to use your hacksaw again and score a line on the mouth of the container pretty much across from each other, so it's going to be 2 score lines. So take your blade and back toward yourself for the one, for the other, and that gives you some very small tick marks at the top of the can. After you've done that, you're going to have a mark here and a mark here. That's important to allow the fuel to flow from inside where you're going to pour it to the outer area here. So with the 2 pieces and the score mark here, set the top inside the bottom, take a block of wood, place it on top, use a hammer, and strike firmly. That seats the inside into the outer portion or the bottom of the container. After that's done, you want to further seat the top of the bottle into the bottom, and so I used a piece of wood that's cylinder in shape. Set it inside, use a hammer, and strike firmly. That allows the outside of the container to have a single piece of metal, and that's going to be handy because this piece of metal is very sharp, and you want to fold this piece, the outer part, over the inner part. So to do that, I use a pair of pliers. Place the pliers inside and simply bend. that shape. I then take the hammer and I tap those flat. I then take my pliers again and I finish bending the edges over. Again, the only reason for doing this is to eliminate the sharp edge from your finished product. And you'll go all the way around for that. You then want to find the part of the can where the inner portion has spread out the outer layer of the can, or the outer edge. You do that by running your hand across it and you'll feel it. And then you can use a felt marker and you can mark that line all the way around. That's going to be important because below that line is where you're going to want to put drill holes so that you're only drilling through one piece of the aluminum, not both of the pieces. So after you've determined where that line is, take your felt marker and put a dot. Directly across from that, put another dot. 90 degrees from those two, put a dot here. Directly across, a dot here. That gives you 4. Then take those distances and split them in half. So you'll have 4 more. And then take each one of those distances and split that in half. And when you're done, you'll have 16 locations on the outside of your can. That's going to be your indicators of where you want to drill. I used a 1/16 inch drill bit, and I have a Dremel tool, a Ryobi, and I put it on the lower speed so that when I reach the inner part of the can, I don't go through both pieces of the metal. Turning that on. And that's as easy as that. So, that's how you make your stove. You can then test your stove. I use denatured alcohol as my fuel source. It's also known as wood alcohol or white gas. You can also use a product called heat. And I just put about 1 ounce of fuel in there. And in order to speed the process, I'm going to put a little bit of fuel underneath. Because what you want to have happen, you can then light the center, and I'll light the outside. Now, when the denatured alcohol hits its boiling point, which is relatively low, the flame is going to come out of the holes that you drilled. I'm going to turn the lights off so that hopefully we can see the whole flame. And there you can see the flame coming out of the 16 holes. You can then place your pot on top and it'll operate just fine. Now, that little bit of alcohol will burn for about 7 to 9 minutes if you cover the center. If you don't cover the center, it'll burn much quicker than that. So, you can make your own alcohol stove, perfect for camping. I will tell you, in the daylight you cannot see the flame, so you're going to have to test it with twigs to see if the flame has actually reached the outside before you put your pot on. This is also very susceptible to wind, so you're going to want to have a wind guard around it, which you can use aluminum, or you can use another can that is substantially larger than this one. Have fun, enjoy camping, kayaking. This is a very lightweight stove. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. Have a great day.